Hi everyone. Um, so this video is going to be walking you through your QGIS pre-lab assignment. So QGIS is a mapping software, so it's going to allow us to visualize and create maps for some of our Purus Repay butterfly data. So this can be a really nice visual supplement for your presentations and to really help better visualize and maybe identify novel patterns in some of the data to answer some of the questions that you guys are asking. So let me share my screen. Okay. So for the pre-lab assignment, we're going to be asking two questions. The first is, what is the distribution of Purus Repay butterflies in the United States over time? And the second is, what is the wing size variation of Purus Repay butterflies in the United States? Now, the caveat to these data, which you should note, all caveats, right? If you recognize them in your data set or in your research, is that the samples are limited, right, to collection. So this is just going to be a sample of some of the butterflies in the US. Not every single Purus Repay butterfly has been collected and recorded in this data set. So that's just a little caveat to note in your questions and while we're making this map. So we're first going to sort of edit down the Excel file so that you're only working with the columns and the data that you need to answer these two questions and to map the butterflies with these two questions. So take a minute, maybe pause the video before we move on, as I want to ask a question. So thinking about these two questions, what data might you need or might be relevant that we need for our map? Okay, so to take a minute and pause the video and maybe jot down a few pieces of which data, what might be relevant in order to visualize and answer these questions. Okay, so hopefully you've given it a little bit of thought and paused the video. But we're going to need the core ID for all of the butterflies. We're going to need, because that's how we uniquely identify each specimen, right? We're going to need the latitude and longitude, because that's how QGIS is going to know spatially, right? Like where to place each specimen. So that's kind of the main important data set, is we want the decimal, latitude, and longitude for each specimen. And then for question one, right, you're going to need the samples that are in the United States, so we can get rid of butterflies in different countries. And the same for question two. For question one, you might also, right, because we're looking over time, so you're going to need the year data is going to be very important here. And then for question two, we're asking about the wing size variation. And so for this, and you can think about this any way you want, as long as you state, which data we're looking at. I think for this, I'm going to look at the both left wing length and the right wing length. And I'm going to add up the total of the left and right wing length, and then categorize them based on small, medium, and large. So we can kind of group the butterflies into these three categories, and it'll make it more visually like easier to visualize on the map. And this will be clear in a minute. So the first thing we're going to do, and again, depending on your question, you can use whatever data you want. It just has to be stated clearly, right? So for wing size variation, you can just use the left wing size if you want, just the right wing. You can do wing width, right? So you can display and use all the data any data that you want. Just make sure that it's clear in your presentation what is being represented. Okay, so we have a cleaned data set. So this is all of our large data set here. And what we're going to do is we're going to just copy over into a new sheet just the columns that we think is necessary, right? So we said the core ID, we wanted the left wing length, the right wing length, we want the year, we want the country, we want decimal latitude and longitude. I think that's it. ID, decimal, latitude, longitude, year. Yeah. Okay, that's it. So basically what I've already done is I've copied over just these columns into a new sheet. Okay. And then we're going to go and kind of clean up the data and filter it a little bit to make sure we're only going to see what we want to see here. So the first thing I did was I highlighted this column G with the country, and I went and I added a filter. Okay, so then you see this little tab pop up in the corner. And from there, you're going to just select the United States, right? So you can abbreviate, and there's different ways people have written in the name of the country. So just select all that applies. So I've only selected USA, United States, and USA, and you want to remove all the blanks as well. Okay, so that's how I filtered the data. So then after I filtered that, I copied, if you copy the entire data set, and I added a new sheet and I pasted that over. And so I labeled this USA because now I know that I've filtered on this page only the specimens that have been collected in the USA. From there, I filtered the year. So highlight column D for the year, come over here, add a filter, okay? And then this filter icon will pop up. So what I did was see how there's this funny number 200, maybe they were writing 2000 something, but there was an error, so you deselect that. And you can also just look for any other weird numbers in the list that don't make sense. And I unchecked the blanks as well. So I now filtered by year. So then again, you can copy the whole selection. And I pasted this into another tab and I labeled that year. So I know that now everything is filtered by country. So everything, all the specimen are in the US and the years have been filtered. So I know that they're true years, there's no blanks, etc. So then what I did was if you right click or control click, if you're on a Mac, you can insert a column. So click insert. And I labeled this year by decade. And so what I'm going to do is what you'll see in QGIS, you can color code the points. There's a very advanced way to categorize things in QGIS, but that knowledge is beyond the scope of the course. And I think it's much easier to prepare everything the way you want it in Excel first. So what we're going to do is, because the default way is every different year color will be colored a different color. And so if you put that on a map, it's kind of pointless because then there's, 100 colors, however many, 50 colors, and you can't really extract anything meaningful from the data with that many colors. And so we're going to group by decade. So I just did 1800s, 1910. So from 1910 basically to 1920, I labeled 1910. Anything in the 1920s was just labeled as 20s. Anything in the 1930s, right, was labeled with 1930. So you're getting these larger groupings. So there's less colors and it's a little bit easier to see in the data, but you can do this any way you want, right? So you can say 1800s, you can say 1900 to 1950, right? And you can label it that way. So you can do like 1900 to 1950 or something like that. And then label all of these butterflies like that. right? So you can do it however you want. So this is just how I chose to do it for this session. Okay, so once you do that, then we're going to filter the wing length. So again, highlight the column. We're going to do the left wing length first, add a filter. This icon appears, click on it, and you're really just looking for any kind of odd numbers as you scroll through, anything that doesn't really make sense. Just take your time here and look at the numbers from your data set. And again, want to remove all the blanks, okay? So then after I did that, I copied the whole data set again into a new sheet, and I labeled this left wing length, so I know that the left wing length has been filtered. Let me expand these a bit for you. So now we're gonna filter the right wing length. So again, highlight the column, go to filter, and then click on the little icon. And again, you're just looking for things that, don't make sense, little odd numbers, mistakes people might have entered. And I've already gone through it, so I know everything's fine. I've already unselected the blanks to get rid of them. So everything is now filtered and the data is somewhat cleaner, right? So again, what you're going to do is right click or control click on a Mac and insert, and you're going to do this twice. So you're going to add 2 new columns. Okay, so the first one I labeled wing length sum. So what you're going to do here is you're going to add up the values and the lengths from the left and the right wing length. And again, there's caveats, right? You're not accounting for the body or anything because that's not being measured. So again, all of these things should be noted in the presentation of what the data is actually representing. So in Excel, you can do these cool formulas. So if you hit equals and then write sum, S-U-M, left parentheses, and then you highlight the columns you want to sum. So F2, comma, G2, close the parentheses and hit enter. And then you can drag that formula into all your columns. Okay, so that's what I did. So I added, so wing length sum is going to be the sum of the left and the right wing length. And then from there, what I did was I sorted the data set smallest to largest. So I can see visually, right, the smallest wing up to the largest sum of the wings. And it's going to ask you if you want to expand the selection and click sort. So I've already done it, so nothing will change. But it'll sort from smallest to greatest value for you. And at this point, depending on what categories and things you're looking at, if you want to do this, basically just take a good look at the data. What I did was again, focusing on column H, looked that the range was from 30 all the way down to 67. So 67 seems kind of like an oddball out. But you want to look at the data and kind of see, there's not that many with 54, 53. As you start getting into 52, 51, these seem to be more of the average numbers because more butterflies are adding up in these values, right? 48, there's a lot more 48 values, 47, 46. So some of these seem to be more of the median mean values for the data set. So just look for kind of natural breaks and trends, and then you can categorize which is small, medium, and large. And again, these are things you all want to note and bring up in the presentation of how you determined small, medium, and large wing length, for example. So what I did was I considered small to be from 30 to 44. So everything, right, small is until 44. And then the medium wing length is going to be from 45 to 49. So down here. I'm sorry, I changed it to 50. So 49 or 45 to 50 was considered medium. And then the large wing lengths are from 51 all the way down to the bottom, which is 67. Okay, so again, creating these categories is going to be helpful in QGIS because again, it's a very complex software. People do their entire PhDs in mapping software, and so we want to simplify it and give them the categories already. Otherwise, for the purposes of our course, each length, right, there's a different number, would be color coded a different color, and that's a pointless map. That's not telling you anything. You're not going to be able to visualize any patterns, etc. So we're going to go ahead and do this first in Excel. And so then now in our mapping software, you can categorize. And so it'll be 3 different colors on the map, and you can see patterns and see trends more easily. Okay, so once we've done that, we're going to save our Excel. And then what we're going to do, so we're going to copy this page into a new Excel file, which I've already done, but I'll do it again here. So our new Excel file, and then we're going to save as PRS Repay data, let's say 2024. We'll save it onto the desktop. And this is just so we have this for our reference, but the file that we need to upload into QGIS is going to be a CSV file. And so we're also going to save the Excel file as this CSV file. Okay. So now we can exit out of our Excel files and we can open up QGIS, which is here. So hopefully everyone has downloaded QGIS before attempting this video. And I recommend that you follow along with the PDF that's also on Canvas. It first will tell you instructions at the beginning on how to download. So you click here, download QGIS. And again, if you're in a Mac, it'll take you to a web page and you'll download it's like a big green button. You'll download that. In a Mac, again, it's going to give you that administrative or like warning. And so you just when it pops up, you just hit cancel and then go to system settings, privacy and security. And if you scroll down, it should be somewhere right here and you'll hit open anyway, and then it'll continue to open. So you have to kind of adjust the preferences there. Okay, so QGIS is now opened, and what we're going to do is double click on this white box for a new empty project, and you get this nice white screen. And what you're going to do is just hit project, save as, and save your file. So you can save your project and you can just click save as you're going through so you don't have to worry about anything being lost, okay? So I'm just going to save it as PRS Repay 2024. And so the first thing we're going to do now is upload our CSV file into QGIS. So we're going to open the data source manager, which is on the top left, this little layered button here. And we're going to go to delimited text, and you'll get this screen. So you'll see these 3 little buttons on the right-hand side of where it says file name. If you click on that, you can just upload your data. So hit open. And then a couple other things you want to look for. Encoding, make sure it says UTF-8. Okay, and then if in case you haven't, like if these aren't collapsed, you can click on these little triangles and you can see expand each section. So it's a CSV file. You don't have to change any of this. The geometry definition, this is important. So you want to make sure the X field is measuring your longitude and the Y field is measuring your latitude. And then the other important thing you want to check is the geometry CRS. That's the coordinate system that it's going to use to calculate the longitude and latitude for each specimen. So you want to do the default CRS EPSG 4326. So WGS 84. So that's the one that you want. Okay. And you can also see down here, let me see. You can also see down here kind of a representation of what your data looks like. So it should mimic what you had on the Excel sheet, which looks good. It's the core ID, latitude, longitude, year, our year by decade, wing length, our sum, and then our categorized wing length and our country. So everything looks fine. So making sure everything, you have these few points that are correct, click add and then close, and you should see a bunch of dots appear on the blank white screen. And since you know you're only looking in the US, you can kind of see, right, that it does similar, like it's a similar outline to the US. So like Maine in the Northeast, maybe Florida down here. But you want to see, right, more of a reference background. And so what you're going to do is go down here to where it says coordinate, and you're going to replace what it says there with the word world and hit enter. And now you see that you have a map where it shows all the points are in the United States. So you want to see how these are a little bit off. So if you look at the layers, right now the data points are at the bottom layer and then the world map is on top. And so you can kind of fix these abnormalities if you drag the world map to the bottom, and then you can see it fits better with the map and the land. So that was like on an island. It looked a little bit weird before. So make sure you drag the world map to below the QGIS data. So it's your world map and then your data projecting on top, and that should make everything more accurate. Okay, so this is a good time to pause and hit save. So we'll save our data set, and your dots might come up a different color or something. That's fine. Don't worry about that. So just to kind of orient everyone, so if you look up here, you can zoom out, zoom in. So if you click on zoom out, you can zoom out and then click the hand button again, you can toggle it around. You can zoom back in. So I'm gonna zoom in to where we had it so we can fit the country nicely in our screen like that. So we can see all of our data points really well. And then you can also do things like you can select some data points. So if you come up and select this button here, let's say you wanted to just understand what these data points were. So you can select them. And then if you hit this icon, it's the attribute table, and it'll open up all of the information from your CSV file for your data points, and it'll highlight whichever points you highlighted. So to make it easier, there are some functions here where this one here, move selection to the top. So all these data points right here are now at the top, and then you can look at them and see, what year they were collected, the size of their wings, et cetera. Any data that you uploaded in your file, so you can look at them. To deselect something, you select this yellow square with the cancel circle. So that returns everything to normal. And then you can do this identify feature. If you click on that, you can click on a single dot and it'll give you the data for that single dot. So kind of cool. Again, you can You select everything, and then also when you select like an area, another way, I think another way to open the attribute table is to either right click on the map, on the CSV data map layer, or if you're on a Mac, control click, and you can open attribute table here. And again, you can scroll to see the highlighted values. You can click here and move the selection to the top. So the 4 will just be at the top. Okay, and you can deselect everything. Okay, so just to kind of orient you, and you can play around with this as well after you watch the video. So now we import it as a CSV file, and that's a temporary layer. So we want to convert the CSV file into a shape file. And that's going to be able to allow us to use this data with other features in QGIS that we can't do because it's more of like a metadata file, and with just the CSV file, we can't use those functions. So what we're going to do is to save as a shapefile, you're going to highlight the layer here, our data layer, and again, right click, or if you're on a Mac, control click, and you're going to go to export, excuse me, export, save features as, and you get this nice window. So on the format drop-down menu, it defaults usually to GeoPackage, so make sure it's ESRI shapefile in the format. And then for the file name, you want to click the 3 dots so that you can save it onto your desktop. So try to do a name with no spaces. So I'm going to do PureRepay 2024. I think that's fine. And then save. I don't think I have anything saved as that. And then again, make sure that this WGS 84 and it's UTF-8, that's what you want. And then make sure that this box, add a saved file to map, is checked. If it's not checked, it's not going to appear in the layers, and then we're going to have a problem. So make sure this is checked so it'll be added to our layers. And then click OK. And you can see the dots changed colors. The file was added to our layers, and you get another message of success on your screen. So we can click out of that. So we don't need, right, so this shapefile that we just made should lay perfectly on top of your CSV file. So you shouldn't see anything different. If you did, you might have not had the right coordinate system saved for the shapefile, right? That CRS, we want the WGS 840 or 84. So make sure that if you have an issue, you can just, again, right click or control click, and you can remove the layer like this, hit yes, and then start over. Click the CSV file, export, and make sure that, I'm doing it over again. Make sure that you have this WGS 84 as your coordinate reference system, and make sure that this is checked. Overwrite file, I guess. Okay. So yeah, so now we have our shapefile, and we don't need the CSV layer anymore. So you're going to, again, right click or control click if you're on a Mac, and remove the layer. So remove legend entry. Okay. So now we just have our shapefile and our world map. And this is a good time again to save our project. So make sure you come to the left corner and click save. So we've already oriented you to the attribute table, but again, you can open it here and look at some of the data. You can select, like, there's a lot right here in Southern California, it seems like. Open the attribute table, and you can kind of look at what the butterflies looked like, what years they were collected, what their wing length was, etc. And if you had more data, it would also show up here that you can see. Okay, so you can take this time if you want to kind of play around and look at what the data, some of the properties of what these specimens are across the map. But what we're going to do is work towards visualizing more easily by year to answer question 1, and then by wing length to answer question 2. So let's focus on question 1, which is, what is the distribution of Pieris Rapé butterflies in the US over time? So we're going to focus on our year by decade data. Okay. So we're going to go to our styling panel here, this little icon here. And if you notice right now, let me move my face. If you notice right now, it's a single symbol. So all the data is just colored one color. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that into categorized. And then we have to choose a value. So again, for question 1, we want year by decade. So we're going to click that. And then you can click here and change the color. You can change the symbol, however the outline of the color of the dot, the fill-in of the dot, and all these other different visual, ways to style the symbol. You can do random colors. So I'm going to do red scale for this. And you hit classify. So now all the dots should appear, and they're going to be colored by decade, like we separated the data. So anything in the 1800s is going to be white. And if you look at the data, let's see. Okay, up here, this one looks like it's white. So the top northeast, it was the butterfly specimen collected in the 1800s that we have in our data set. Whereas, the darker red colors I see a lot that caught my eye down here in California, a couple maybe darker dots, so later collection years, 2020. I don't know what that would be, like Nevada, Utah, part of California. So you can see here in the layer styling panel, we want to uncheck this because we don't want others. We just want these values that we know. And then you can apply it here. And you can exit out. But again, you can take this time and you can color it, blues. You can scale it however you want. That might be something that you like. It's as a rainbow, which is pretty, but I don't know how, again, you want to think about how best visually things might, right? Because you want people to look at the data and be able to visualize the trend easily. So I'm going to keep mine red, but you can pause the video here and explore, right? You can change the dot style like this, things like that. Okay. So yes, hit apply, and then you can exit out of this little panel. And you have the data here like this. So you can save it now since you've had time to adjust the dots and the samples like you want them. And then, take a minute and look at the data and see, are there patterns emerging, right? Do you see trends by year? Again, there's still a lot of colors, and with the scale, it might be hard to differentiate, right? Like this color orange from this color orange. So maybe this isn't the best way to group them. Maybe we should have grouped them in like spans of 50 years or something, right? To get less colors and more better visualization. So that's something to think about. And again, if you do this in your data and you say, okay, I don't like the way this is grouped, you can go back to your Excel file and group them a different way and then re-upload that CSV file and start over. So that's not a problem. Okay, so now we have this kind of gray map in the background, but we can overlay or add a layer with a more refined map where we can get roads and state boundaries, et cetera. And so that's what we're going to do next. So if you go to the open data source icon here, I don't know how everyone's menus are appearing. So I think it's better to just go to the open data source button again, and you're going to click this tab, browser. So it should be, again, I don't know if everyone has this sort of tab open on the side. So then you're going to go down to XYZ tiles, expand it, and then double click OpenStreetMap that, and you'll see that it's added to your layers, and then hit close. So what you saw was that the dots disappeared, right? And this is because the map was put on top of our dots. And so what we're going to do is drag OpenStreetMap to below our PRS Repay dataset, and you'll see that the dots reappear. And you can uncheck the world map because we don't need that map anymore. That kind of bland gray map, we don't need that. We have this better map here. Okay, so pretty cool, right? Now we have a map of the US and you can see, right, like you could zoom in here and see like where were all these butterflies in California being collected. And what we see is it's the Santa Barbara area, right? More kind of up north in the US. I'm sorry, in California. And you can go kind of scroll down south a little bit. Oh, I'm too zoomed in. Yeah, so seems like the Santa Barbara area, maybe there were a lot of Pierce Repay butterflies in the recent decades since the colors are darker, right? Even one on Santa Cruz Island, pretty cool. A couple in Santa Monica, near Burbank. See if there were any in Riverside. Nope, don't see anything for Riverside. But yeah, so you can use this time to kind of zoom in on clusters and get a better idea of where the data points were. I want to be zoomed in one more. Okay. Okay. So yeah, and again, at any point in this video, if you find something interesting and cool, pause it and you can play around with the data here. Okay, so we removed the world. So again, uncheck the world map box to remove that third layer. And so now we get to actually export this to make our map, our image. So what we're gonna do is come up here and hit project and then new print layout and a new, so we have to title it. So I'm gonna do PRS Repay Q1 map. So this is to answer question 1 on our pre-lab. Hit OK, and you're gonna see this white box appear. The first time I opened QGIS, it appeared really small. So if you go up here, so this tab up here is like to edit things generally in the whole map. So you can click the zoom out. If yours appeared really big, like mine did, you can zoom in however big you want. And then everything on this toolbar on the side is to our functions more specifically for like items in your map, to add items, item properties, things like that. So you'll see we have just this white screen, right? What are we supposed to do with that? So what you have to do is you have to go to add item and add map, and then you can draw a rectangle to fit this white empty page. And wherever the rectangle size you draw, that's where the map will load. So I like mine to fit the whole map, the whole page, and I'm gonna leave just a little white border. So I'm gonna draw my rectangle like this, but you can draw it whatever size you want. If that makes sense to you. And you can adjust it later. So yeah, so then it'll populate the map into the rectangle. And again, if you don't like the size, right, you can like come down, make it smaller. It just give it a little bit of time to reload itself. I like mine to fill most of the page. That's how I visually like it. Okay. So now we have the map. So think about what are some features that you need on a map, right? You need a title because you have to tell people what they're looking at. You need a scale, so you know what scale and what size, right, we're looking at. You need, usually they have some of compass or North Star, so you know which direction or can orient people to the direction of the map. And then a legend, so we know what the different color codes and everything mean. So let's add those features to our map. So let's add a title first. So you're going to go to add item, add a label, and similarly, you're going to just draw a box. And you can use the ruler to kind of center everything. So you can't directly edit it here on the map. You have to go to this menu on the side. It says item properties, and you can change the text. So I'm going to say Purist Repay occurrence over time in the USA. That's going to be my title. And then if you scroll down, you can change, like we hit the font. I like Helvetica as a font, so you can change that. So it'll change the font. You can change the size of the font. So let's do try, oh, into 300. So 30, that seems like a good font. Oh, we don't want inches. We want weights. Okay. So yeah, the color of the font you can change. You want, I'm gonna leave mine black. And then if you go back, you can also center it in your box and in the middle, which I like. You can add a frame and then edit the frame, background color or not. I think I'm going to add a background color and in mine. And maybe a frame. Let's see. I'm going to just leave my default setting, but you can play with all these features down here. So I have my title. And then we need a scale bar. So we can add item, add a scale bar. And again, you draw your little box. I'm going to do it over here on this side. You have your scale bar and then you can move it around. So again, if you click on the scale bar, you're going to, under item properties, now be editing everything about the scale bar. So the units now are in kilometers. I'm going to change them to miles because that's what we read in the US. You can change the width of this. So if you change it to like 150, see how it's smaller. I'm going to keep it at 250. The height you can change to 2, let's say. Again, add frames, borders, background, so you can manipulate all of this if you want or in the future. Okay, so now we're going to add the north arrow. And again, you have to draw a little box for where you want it to go. And again, you can frame background, so you can just fill color, you can change. Let's see, the browser, when I scroll down, I saw there were different, sorry, there were different images, how to adjust the, like you can do different compass. Can I see any of these? Oh, let me make this bigger. There we go. So like you can do maybe this, or you can change it to, where is it? This little compass guy. And you can change the color to black so we can see it. Okay, so now we have a nice little compass. And then the last thing we're going to do is add the legend. And again, you have to draw the box. So I'm going to put it here. And, oops, sorry. So for the item properties, you don't want world map, street map. This doesn't have any value. So what you're going to do, so first you have to uncheck this auto update box or it won't let you make changes here. So unclick auto update and then you click on world map and then you can remove that and it'll delete from the legend. Same thing here. And then you can click the arrow to expand everything in the shapefile. And again, we don't want that, so you can delete that. And then you can double click here and change the legend name. So we're looking at year or like occurrence by, so just do year by decade. Or we can just put decade, that's fine, decade. Okay, and then we can drag it so it fits nicely on our map. And so remember when you're adding these elements, you don't want to cover up or like skew any of the data points. So make sure you keep that in mind. And then for this, I'm going to add, I think I'm going to add a frame, just a small black outline. Okay, so I'm really happy with this. Again, pause the video, change anything you want. And I will note, so what you can do is if you decide, like maybe you had the color points green, but then you realize that you couldn't really see them very well on the map. So you can't actually change it here. You have to go back here and go to the layer styling tab. And then you can change, like, let's go here. Let's change it to this. Hit apply. And then you can go back to your map screen and hit refresh. And it'll refresh here. So if you want to change the symbols, you have to go back into your original QGIS screen. So I'm going to change it back to my reds like I had it. And then again, open up our project layout for print, click refresh, and it'll sync everything up. So back to red. Okay, so once we have everything like we want it, we're going to save what we can. And again, you can save your individual map here at any point that you make changes, so you don't have to risk losing anything. So now we're going to, oh, and then I guess like here on your actual map, you can also add like a frame, color different colors. Okay, so there's lots of ways to customize and manipulate what your map looks like. So now we're gonna export this as an image. So we will go to the layout menu here and export as an image. So I'm going to keep the same name as a desktop, and then I'm going to save it as a .jpg and click save. And I'm just going to keep every setting the same. So once that is saved, I can open up my pre-lab assignment again and insert my picture. Okay. So I don't know how familiar everyone is, so you can go in a Word document, insert picture from file, and then scroll down. This is my image here. And ta-da, looks nice, right? So now what's the distribution of Purus Repay butterflies in the US over time? So again, I wanted to kind of do this so you can see, maybe this isn't the best visual representation to answer this question. Maybe we need to condense maybe not by decade, but maybe like every 50 years is a different category. And so there'll be fewer colors and then we might see a better pattern. I don't really see a standout pattern here. So this might not be the best way to group that data. Okay, so this is just one example. So now let's make the map for question 2. What is the wing size variation of Purus Repay butterflies in the United States? So now, okay, so we can exit out of this map. So now we're gonna go, oh, we're already in it. So if you're not in this view, click on the Purus Repay shapefile layer, right click, or on a Mac, control click, and sorry, that's not what we do. Just hit the this layer styling icon and you'll see this pop back up. So remember, we want categorized data, and we're gonna do wing length size. This was the column where we had it separated by small, medium, and large. Okay, so what's going to show up here is the column header. So just remember, whatever data you want to visualize, just remember what you named the column header. That's why I named it WL size. So then you have to hit classify, and we're going to hit yes because we want to now see this data. And again, uncheck this because we don't want others. Just delete that, I think. Yeah. And then you can change the color. So I'm going to do for large butterfly wing set length. We're going to make these guys, let's say blue. And then the stroke color is also going to be blue. Okay. So that's blue. And then for medium, let's do orange. I'm just guessing like what the approximate same color is going to be. And then for small, let's do, my favorite color is purple, so let's do a nice purple color. It's more like fuchsia. Okay. So, and I also don't like that small is on the bottom. So I'm going to go small, medium, large, because that just makes sense to me. So you can drag these and put them in any order that you want. Okay, so we're going to hit apply and then exit out of this panel. And again, this is a good time to pause and maybe look for trends in your data and see if they're visualized easily. We did this, we separated and categorized them kind of by eye. So maybe that's not the best way to categorize them. Okay, so there are all these different things you have to think about when visualizing the data. Maybe my cutoffs weren't accurate, or there's a better way. Maybe, I can just do the math and divide it by 3, and that's how we get the sizes. Maybe anything under 40 should be considered small. So maybe I didn't quite do the categories right. And again, that's something you can go back and change in your Excel file and then re-upload the CSV. So it'll make everything look a little bit different. So don't worry if you put it in the visual, if you are categorizing something and you're unsure about it, you can visualize it. And if you don't really see a trend, you can change the categories and try again. Okay, so this is what we have. I don't really see, so small is purple, so small, orange, blue. I mean, I think there's a lot of blue maybe in the upper left-hand corner. And then you can look at things, right, like maybe rainfall or temperature or something like that. So in that area, right, and maybe try to get a correlation. So lots of different things and avenues you can go in. Okay, so now let's make our map for question 2. So again, you're going to go to Project, New Print Layout, and I'm going to just save it as question 2. So again, you start with this blank box. You're going to add item, add a map. And as I said, I like my map to cover the full page. Okay, there we go. So we need a title, add a label, and I didn't need to do that, but okay. So again, you have to change the title on the item properties menu on the right. So we're looking at Purus Repay Wing Link. And if I go to font, I need to, why I like it center, right? So we're going to align it center in the middle. And my font size, let's try 30. Okay, seems fine. And then I also wanted to just do a white background and a frame so you can pop the title a little bit. Now we need a scale bar. So add item, add scale bar, and then draw where you want it to be. So I'm going to make it on the opposite side this time. Again, I'm changing the units to miles since that's what we use in the US. And here again, you can change the length, the width. You can add a frame, whatever you want to do. I'm going to leave it like that. Now we're going to add a north arrow. So add item, add a north arrow. And you have to draw where you want it. You can draw this anywhere, right? Here, as long as you're not, getting in the way of the data points. And let's see, let's do another one. Let's do this, something simple. And the fill color is going to be black. So you can see everything. Okay, so there's my little north arrow. If you don't like where it is, you can change it a little. And then last thing is our legend. So we're going to add item, add legend. And let's draw it here. I know it's not going to be that big. So again, item properties, you want to uncheck this auto update. Click the world map and remove it. Click the street map, remove it. And then drop down the menu. And that's what we have, small, medium, large. And then you double click so this is going to be wing length. Okay, so it looks good. Reposition it. And then I'll also say, I don't think I said this in the beginning, but if you go back to your initial QGIS screen and you click on the Pierce Repay shapefile, click on the layer styling, in your symbols, when you edit them, you double click, right? You can also change the size. So like you can change it like 3.4 if they seem too big. So that's something you can also do when you're making your edits. Like they have diamonds, they have all these other things, which I don't want. So I just wanted it, what did I have it? Fuchsia. That's what I want. Okay, so going back to our map screen, I have all my elements that I want. I don't like the way this is. Let's put it up here a little more. Okay. So again, we're going to go to layout, export as image. I'm just going to leave it as my question two. Save. And it says it's been successfully exported. So I'm going to open my pre-lab assignment. I'm going to insert picture from file, scroll down my Q2 image and insert. I'm going to make it a little smaller so it just fits to one page. And I like everything centered. Okay, so that's it for our pre-lab assignment, right? We created two maps and I showed you how to categorize and column, in a different column to categorize your data ahead of time in Excel. That way we don't have to learn and go into the nitty-gritty details of how to do this in QGIS because um, it's a people do their whole PhDs on mapping software, so you can get really complex. And we don't need to do all of that for the purposes of this course. So I recommend ahead of time categorizing your data so you can group things in the mapping software. Okay, so don't forget to save your pre-lab and upload it to Canvas before 1 p.m., the start of your lab. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or your TA or drop by for office hours. And, hopefully you will use this in class this week to add an extra fun visualization and, to your data and let us kind of see the patterns and you can have fun and learn a new skill as well. Okay, so I'll see you all this week in class. Bye.